when I got laid off from my job, I came to you. I felt so ashamed. I was like,
it was really sad.
yeah, I was like in the picking you up and from the work. I came out there like I was like crying, and I was like, Kristen, I got some bad news. Yeah, I was like, I got laid off. She's like, oh, thank God. She's like, thank God. I thought your grandma died or something. I thought something actually bad happened. What's it like being married to Tim?
Man.
The dark truth about being married to Tim Oppel. If the computer's not working and I'm in a bad mood, I will effing destroy it. You need to cut the BS. Why do you think entrepreneurs are more likely to get divorced?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is
We're gonna get canceled if we say too many things. So today I have a very special guest, my wife, Kristen. What's up, everybody? Say hi to Kristen.
Hi. Hello, YouTube.
Yes, YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. So I wanted to bring Kristen on because I've seen a lot of podcasts out there in our industry, but people don't really bring their wives on. I read a study recently that entrepreneurs tend to have a higher divorce rate than the average American, which is still pretty high divorce rate. I couldn't find any articles about real estate specifically, but just from meeting so many investors, going to different masterminds, I've seen a lot of investors who have gotten divorced. So I wanted to bring Kristen on today to just get her perspective on what it's like being married to an entrepreneur, someone who's in real estate, and we'll see where it goes. I don't have a ton scripted, so
Great.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. So I can maybe give a little bit of background about me, kind of how we met,
Go for it.
How we built up our relationship before marriage, and watching your journey through up to the entrepreneur you are today. So Tim and I met in college at the College of New Jersey, and we're very different in terms of what we studied. So I was studying chemistry and Tim was studying business at the time. So very different fields. And I remember from kind of the beginning, it was always a point of concern kind of for Tim a little bit that, we were studying things that were so fundamentally different. And I know that, our compatibility at some times was, in question.
I'm real estate, you're in science.
Yeah, they're different, but there are a lot of similarities, and we can discuss that later. So I was into chemistry. Tim started up his, real estate, I guess, adventures.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't really know what I do. So.
It's hard for me to describe when people ask me what does he do. I mean, he probably feels the same way about what I do, which is why they're also very similar. So he was starting out in the grind, right? He was getting up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and hanging up bandit signs, doing all these, direct mail letters at the time.
Yep, writing them myself, printing them out, writing the letters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a grind.
Yeah, so then we graduated. I went to graduate school for my PhD in chemistry, and I studied organic chemistry and how that relates to disease, specifically infectious disease. And so at the time, Tim was writing his direct mailers, and I was, in graduate school, also in the grind. So we were kind of grinding at the same time and trying to build our careers at the same time and helping each other in, any way that we could. I remember I was filling out some of the addresses on the envelopes and helping you mail them out a long time ago.
She still asked me to work for me. She's like, Tim,
I know,
hire me.
It's so much easier.
I'm like, I can't afford you.
He could afford me back then. Yeah, so we went through graduate school. We moved in together and just kind of watched each other's journeys grow. I mean, graduate school is hard, but also starting your own business is hard. Tim was working a full-time job at the time in marketing, and when he got laid off from that job, I encouraged him to maybe just try pursuing his entrepreneurial journey in real estate. So in a way, I think it's really helpful to have a partner right from the start that kind of supports that and supports that lifestyle that might be a little bit unknown. Even though we were in our not even mid-20s at the time, it was kind of the perfect time to start doing something like that and to take that kind of risk on, if you want to call it a risk, and just kind of invest in yourself. So he was investing in himself, and I was investing in myself in graduate school. And then so then after that, I mean, he was doing wholesaling at the time. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do work in industry where I would make medicine at a drug company or potentially stay in academia. So we were kind of trying to figure out like what we wanted our long-term careers to be at the time. And yeah, then Tim decided to expand his business. I decided I wanted to stay in a more academic setting. So we moved to San Diego from Delaware, and I pursued a postdoc. So right now I'm a postdoc at Scripps Research in San Diego.
Still in San Diego.
And we're currently in San Diego, and Tim created a new branch to his wholesaling business, if that's right. Doing internet marketing.
Yeah, my agency, right?
Agency, yes.
Yeah.
The agency,
They know all about that. I shameless plug myself often, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he works for Carrot, so we could also talk about that a little bit too. Shameless plug.
Yeah. I should wear my Carrot shirt today, but yeah.
Yeah, and then now we're moving to Pennsylvania. We got married. We're moving back to the East Coast. I'm moving to Pennsylvania. I got a job as an assistant professor at Lafayette College there, and Tim's, still doing what he does best. Right? He's expanded his network. And when you expand your network, you expand your net worth. Is what I've learned.
I told her to say that.
So I've picked up a lot of little things along the way about being an entrepreneur. So. Yeah, it's just been really fun being on the journey from the beginning.
So the juicy questions are, why do you think entrepreneurs are more likely to get divorced than the average person? I mean, there's a lot to unplug here, but initial thoughts, and then we can see where it goes.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just stress and what kind of things stress different personalities out. For us, and for you, I've learned over the years that the unknown is very stressful. And even though at the time we were in our mid-20s, we didn't really have a lot of expenses. It was okay if we weren't, as a couple, bringing in a lot of money because we just didn't need it at the time. But I think that the instability of income while you were starting your business was stressful on you. And I think that's important to understand is that when your partner's stressed out, you're stressed out too, and vice versa. So just trying to manage the stress and trying not to create an environment that's even more stressful.
Do you get a big stress thing?
I think it's stress. I think it's coping with stress and then trying to work towards solutions that actually will help solve the problem to alleviate some of the stress.
Gotcha. And I do want to dive into maybe how we have addressed it. So we've been together, I mean, you broke down the timeline, but in terms of years, 12 years, basically we've been going out, married for one.
Yeah, not even.
Yeah, not even one. Took me a minute to get there. COVID partially to blame as well for that. But we've been together a while, so obviously, we don't have 50 years of marriage experience. Hopefully we'll get there.
I don't know the stats of what he was reading, but
I don't know. But I feel like we're doing pretty good. I feel like we're in a really good place. So I definitely want to talk about some of the things that we've done to help overcome those challenges. But I want to hear first maybe some other challenges you think of. So stress is a big one.
Stress.
What else comes to mind?
The difference in time prioritization, I guess. Since I go to work, I have to physically go to work and work in the lab, and both in graduate school and my current job, you're kind of working at all these random odd hours. It's not a set 9-to-5 job like a lot of businesses. I know entrepreneurship is not like that. You're kind of also working all the time, but it's easier to set boundaries. So dealing with just just inherent differences of Tim working from home, me actually leaving and going to work, and then trying to not only spend time together, but also handle the challenges and loneliness that comes with working from home with no one around, especially when your partner is off working a lot and maybe you're not working at those types of hours. So I think that's stressful.
It is very challenging. I mean, you're not a 9-to-5 person either necessarily, but maybe closer than I was, to some extent. But either way, that was definitely a challenge of managing schedules because I work from home, so I can work wherever I want. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, being in grad school enough is a challenge for any partner. So I think we both had kind of, our situation may be a little different, a little different than a lot of other people's,
Yeah.
but I think still, yeah, having, and I still struggle with that now to some extent, not in terms of our, relationship, but relationship with friends of like, I can be free sometimes at 3 in the afternoon to go work out or play tennis or, go to grab coffee or something, even though I don't drink coffee, but you get the idea. And a lot of my friends work 9 to 5. And if you have a spouse that works 9 to 5 too, it's a little different.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah.
So learning we're still not perfect at it by any means, but we're getting there, I think, to a point where schedules match a little bit more. And also balancing like house chores, I guess, for lack of a better word, or trying to fit all of that into everything else is also challenging.
Why is that?
Well, because if I'm working out of the house and we're talking about like meal prep or things like that, and since Tim works from home,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to just assume, well, you're right in the next room. Why not just go and do X, Y, and Z thing?
Because I'm already home.
Because you're already there.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
to
it's like
him-
not respecting, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
like, we've had this conversation many times. So, it's like, just because someone's at home
Yeah.
doesn't mean, it's almost like, this is the way I would put it, like disrespecting the job a little bit. Maybe that's harsh, but like, oh, he's
Could be
working from
harsh.
home, so he's not really working. He can go do off and different things. I think maybe we're a little better than we used to be at that. But
Yeah.
what do you think? You think that's a partially respect thing, or?
I think it's hard for someone like me to understand and process really what it means to work from home because I've never done that. Except for that like 1 month period during COVID.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of at the time where I gained maybe some more respect for that boundary. Because it really is a boundary. Like you're working. It's not like you're just sitting there, doing
Right.
nothing. Or like kind of like what they post on social media sometimes is like, oh, they have like a fan moving the mouse, and that's like their work for the day. That's
It's not what.
that's not really what happens. At least not here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a challenge too. Is if you don't work from home, have no experience working from home. Neither of my parents worked from home either.
Yeah.
So it kind of just never clicked with me. And
It's like a relatability
what-
thing. You just
yeah.
don't quite. You just haven't done it, so
Yeah.
that's different. So what else? Anything else you can think of that would be a stressor, or not stressor, but a cause for someone to get divorced who's an entrepreneur?
let's see.
I got one.
Okay.
So control. I think.
Yeah.
I think people who are entrepreneurs are often a double-edged sword, and I think this goes true for many different personality types. But the thing that drives us to be successful is also the source of our greatest pain at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
at least a lot of the entrepreneurs I know, the reason they're entrepreneurs in the first place is because they're trying to gain some control over their life that maybe they didn't have growing up. They had some pain growing up, whether it's family or some type of trauma. So, the reason you're even an entrepreneur in the first place is because you want a sense of freedom in your life. But another way to look at it is you want more control over your life. You want control to, work with who you want, do what you want, when you want to do it. And I think it's a great thing to aspire to, but the problem is you can't manage your marriage like your business. As much as I try to, it doesn't work very well.
No.
It just doesn't work. So, I don't want to say this as a blanket generalization, but a lot of entrepreneurs seem to be controlling people oftentimes, and myself included. I'm not saying I'm not controlling. I've gotten a lot better at it, but it's definitely been something I've had to work at over the years. So, for me, the first thing, if I'm like, oh, entrepreneurs are more likely to get divorced, well, I'm like, yeah, well, they're all control freaks, and what to you do you agree with that? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on entrepreneurs being controlling and how that would affect a marriage?
Yeah, I mean, control is a huge issue. I feel like it's a huge issue in relationships. It's an issue even in business relationships, right? You
Yeah.
can't be controlling all the time about everything when you're working with people. It's just kind of, everybody's different. So it really affects not just your personal relationships, but then eventually it's going to spread into your business and business relationships. So maybe that's part of it too, is maybe all of these feelings of control in that respect about relationships are being suppressed when you're thinking about your business relationships, and then you kind of take it out on your personal life, and your wife or your kids are the people that are around you the most.
What do you mean by take it out on them?
So gaining that sense of control from your personal life, because your professional life to an extent is also out of your control, right? Like your income
is up and down.
Yeah, it's up and down. You're working with so many different types of people. In a sense, you need to communicate with a lot of different kinds of people, which can be stressful.
Deals fall apart all the effing time. Real estate, I think, is one of the most stressful businesses. The stakes are high.
Money's high.
The money is high.
Stressful.
The people are crazy. Deals fall apart last minute. You're like supposed to make 20 grand, and then it falls apart, and you're like, what the actual F? So
yeah. So it's really easy to take. Yeah, he's getting stressed out just thinking about it. So
that's why I moved to marketing, did an agency. But I digress.
Yeah. So I think it helps having a partner that's been there from the beginning, because you kind of see the progression of it, and then kind of think about ways to, I don't know, to still like make you feel like you do have a sense of control, but at the same time respect like personal boundaries and like family boundaries and things like that. So I think being aware of it is really honestly the first step, and people talking about it is really important. So I think that was one of the reasons why I think it's great that we're doing this podcast, is because it kind of normalizes it in a way and say like, yes, this is a problem. A lot of people have this problem, and this is kind of one example or a couple examples on how we work through it and persevere, I guess. I mean, no one's perfect.
What do you think are some examples of, I never really realized I was I don't want to take the identity of a controlling person, but I act controlling sometimes, especially under stress. When I get stressed out, I tend to be like more particular about stupid things, like the place should be here, or we need to clean up, or just
technology needs to be a certain way.
If the computer's not working and I'm in a bad mood, I will effing destroy it. So I guess the question is like, how does someone become aware that maybe they're controlling, or maybe the partner will just tell them, that's kind of what happened. Like, hey Tim, like chill out. But are there ways that you think people can realize that, hey, is this me? Is this not me?
Yeah, I think getting the person to sit down and talk through what's on their mind in an honest conversation, and creating an environment where there's like no judgment about, talking about your feelings. And I think it's hard when both people are feeling out of control and want to be controlling. I think that's when we struggle the most to get to that safer space where we can talk about these things. I mean, science is also stressful. There's a lot of unknown. You run experiments. You can run an experiment for a month that costs a lot of money, and then it doesn't work. And it's not necessarily your fault, but you've just wasted a lot of time and money doing it. And so in that sense, it's very similar. So it helps to kind of, if you notice that your partner is doing and feeling this way, to kind of think about, well, how do I feel when this happens to me? So it kind of brings it down and cools down the environment a little bit to be more relatable. So I think creating an environment with good open communication, and then getting the other person to kind of walk through it themselves, instead of you just telling someone, hey, you're being controlling. Nobody really wants to hear it. Nobody really wants to hear that.
No, it's not like, oh yeah, you're right. Thank you so much. I won't be controlling anymore.
Yeah. So kind of like letting them like talk through it. I mean, like we're both very intelligent people, I think, and we're self-aware enough to know eventually get to that point where we can talk about what's actually bothering us.
Get through the clutter of it all in our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah. And checking in, another thing is checking in often, because we know that this is the way that our lifestyle is, and it's just a matter of time before something stressful comes up again, or a situation like what we're describing comes up. So just trying to be mindful of checking in on your partner, and looking for these types of signs, and so that maybe you can get ahead of them and create that type of environment where you can talk about it.
So what happens though? Like, how does it? Maybe people don't do that or whatnot.
Yeah.
What are like the worst case scenarios of it? Like someone who's controlling. I know we've experienced some tough times, and what is the downside if someone's like, you know what, who cares if I'm controlling, I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Why would that lead to issues in a relationship?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the personality of the other partner. If it's somebody that kind of like doesn't mind being the follower, I guess, in the way of like, that's just the way that their relationship dynamic is that, whatever partner A wants, the way that they want certain things, and they're fine with it, and they're just, happy-go-lucky, then there's no issue. But I think when people and partners have certain things that they want and certain things that they need, and then you kind of just throw up your hand, both of you throw up your hands, and you're just like, well, if you're not going to give me what I'm going to need, what I need, then I'm just going to go do my own thing. And then you say the same thing, then that creates distance, and then eventually that distance just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's harder to come back together.
Right.
And almost, I guess some people maybe think it's not worth the time to put it back together.
Can you think of specific examples for you? That's one reason why
For me?
I wanted to bring you on here, share what you are comfortable or not, but I want to hear your experience, being married. What's it like being married to Tim?
I mean, it's great, honestly. I mean, it's hard because we're talking about these things that are issues, but
yeah.
I think maybe part of this isn't exactly answering your question, but filling up your love bank with other things that aren't just this, or like solving these types of problems. Like, we have a connection on many, many other different levels. Like, we both like traveling, we both like going to new places, and just being together and talking and doing things like this. So just making sure, going on dates, so just making sure that you're constantly, filling up that bank so that when times do get hard, you're not running on empty, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's the best place to say that, but thinking of examples of times when I felt controlling. I mean,
put you on the spot.
I mean, where do I begin?
Okay.
It's hard because it usually is surrounded by like not just professional stress, but if there's personal stress going on, like life changes or things like that. So like when we moved out here, there's two really main things, right? So with science, and other scientists can attest to this as well, you don't always know when your experiment is officially going to end. Excuse me. So with that, Tim, who, I mean, I wouldn't consider him to be a very like timely person, but he's not not timely. Like, he'll be there, but it's not, I wouldn't consider him to be extremely punctual or a punctual individual. So, I mean, for years, like years and years and years, this has been an issue of if he comes and visits me at work, or we go to have lunch together, or he's coming to pick me up, and I say, okay, I'm done, and then I'm not out there within like the split second that he comes. And this could range from me coming out like 5 minutes later to like hours later, which is not good. And I admit that, and it's not good, and we've worked past that.
Yep.
But that's something that frustrates him, that
you're not out on, like, I
not
expect
out
you to
on
be out
time.
of 3, come out of 3.
Yeah. Out of 3, for whatever reason, with me specifically, it's just, this is the way that it is with him and me me needing to be out at a certain time.
Yeah.
So that to me is a controlling thing. If you want somebody to be out at a specific time every single time, and then if they're not out there at that time, then you're gonna hear about it. I mean, it's it ranges in what the response is, and that range really depends on how out of control he might be feeling about other things that don't really have to do with me. So it's hard for the person on the other side to maybe differentiate between, hey, is he really feeling this way solely about me, because of me and what I'm doing, or how is his job or other stressful things in his life affecting that.
Taking it out on you to
Yeah.
some extent. Like, I have my deal just fall apart
Yeah.
and I'm losing money and my employees aren't listening to me.
Yeah.
And now I can't even get my wife to show up at the effing time that she says she's supposed to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that probably is a pretty common dynamic too,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, time is money. Like, you value time in a different way
It's intense.
than how I value time. For me,
Yeah.
like, it makes more sense in my field to like take the time to make sure things are done a certain way, and if it takes longer, then that's fine. That's just the way that it is, because it winds up saving like money and experiment time and things like that later on, preventing failure. So and then for you guys, it's different. Like, time is money. You need to like close this deal like yesterday. And so that, I think, is the difference that we had.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up of like, and I see this more and more, even like the higher up you get in business, people are, and I'll say men, like most of the people I work with, just so you guys have my context for how I view the world, I work with a lot of guys, right? It's probably science guys, yeah. Probably like 85% guys, you know, just the clients we have for whatever reason, real estate agents tend to actually are more female, but for whatever reason, investors tend to be more guys. And the guys that I know who tend to like, you know, are higher up on the quote success totem pole, they're much more anal about their time. Of, you know, like exactly what you said, like optimization. Like you hear that word, like optimization, like my dollar per hour is $50 an hour, so I shouldn't be doing anything else. And if I have to go pick you up, technically it's $50 an hour of my time, and you know maybe I should, you know, I'll pay you an Uber to come back home because that's cheaper than me driving and picking you up because I can go work or do freelance or whatever the heck it is.
Which has been done.
Which has been done, yes.
Not often.
Not often. But it literally has been happened. Like literally you had to Uber home and I was like, I'm not doing it. But I'm sure there was probably other issues with that time. Which we don't have to get into on this one.
No.
But I'm curious your thoughts on like the idea of like optimizing your life and almost like making it like a business. Like, do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing? How does it affect, you know, what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I don't generally like putting things into like one box and then calling it a business. I think certain aspects of your marriage and your personal life should be and do benefit from being run kind of like a business. Like with what you're saying, like there are certain things that you do need to be on time for. There's certain, you know, ways that things should be, and I think that mindset has helped in some aspects of our relationship. But then there's a whole other arm of it where things are just unknown. Like things come up personally, how to deal with, you know, family, people getting sick, just like routines being broken, things like that, and trying to work through those types of unknowns. I don't think that those can be run with a business or with that type of structure very well, because a lot of those are also emotional, and there's an emotional tie to them when people get sick or you have to take off of work to take care of someone or something. So yeah, I think that the more emotional aspect of a relationship, like love, connection, those types of things, it's really hard to run those like a business.
So what do you think maybe from like a female's perspective, what are things that you see that maybe the guy entrepreneur or even just an entrepreneur in general maybe wouldn't pick up on? Like challenges that you have that maybe I wouldn't even think of. Does anything come to mind?
Man, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is having patience. But there are some men that are patient. Like you can't really like lump everyone in together.
Right.
But having patience, and then when something goes wrong, to be able to compartmentalize it and then just not take it so personally. I think that might be a big difference too between men and women I mean, I know we're talking about in the opposite context here, but
We're going to get
women-
canceled if we say too many things.
But I am curious of what you think about why is it that there are 85% of your investors are male, and then the other, where are the women, what are they doing? And I think maybe they just don't want to put up with people being super controlling. They want to kind of do things at their own pace. We have different responsibilities that others don't, and so I don't know. I don't know what the issue is there.
Maybe the guys don't mind the control aspect of it. It's just like a personality thing, but the women don't want to deal with it. Maybe they don't. That's why they don't want to be in the field potentially.
Yeah, or they're forcing them out, or who knows? I mean, I don't know much about it. But I think there are certain personality traits that women have that could benefit. We look at things from a different perspective, and also in general too. The other thing, women tend to be, put onto certain jobs and do certain tasks that are more, helpful, like things that might not be 100% necessary to do, something that a male entrepreneur might say, this isn't worth my time at $50 an hour or whatever. But because women tend to have more nurturing types of behaviors, and they fit that role a little bit better, and then they wind up doing these tasks, and then it takes up their time, and then they can't get that $50 per hour deal because they're too busy doing something else. So
that makes sense. I get that. Okay.
So maybe that's why. And yeah.
Do you have any other? We could go down a rabbit hole of like, we're going down like the gender inequality discussion, which probably maybe isn't our target audience a little bit, but I know you have a lot of thoughts on that. But I think in terms of like, I guess the rest of this podcast episode, I do want to talk about, and you brought this up, this just shows the difference between us, because I was going into this episode being like, we're going to talk about all of like the dark truth of entrepreneurship marriage. Like I was like, you guys know me, like my videos are kind of like have the negative sensational spin. The dark truth about being married to Tim Appel. What it's really like.
It's not that dark.
No, that's the thing. So that's the thing. And I think something that maybe is even a better topic to talk about is the positive aspects of it. And you've already been touching on it. And it's just you're much more positively focused.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I love you and you help me. But I would love to talk about, what are the benefits, I think, to even my business of being in a marriage. Now, obviously, I can speak on that too, but I'd love to know your thoughts about marriage takes hard work. And a lot of our friends tell us, like when we got married, a lot of the speeches were around, hey, we respect you guys work so hard on your relationship. And I think we do. But we do it for a reason. We're not just doing it to create another job for ourselves. Yeah. So I would love to know what you think are the benefits of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tim's way / entrepreneurial way of being systematic about things, creating systems to set us up for success. That was something like at the time when we first met, and then even into our 20s, I just never operated like that. I'm more like thinking more about emotional things and just being emotional, I guess, than, hey, we're having this problem. Let's maybe read this book or do this, and this, and systematically work through the problem versus kind of just letting emotions run rampant and then, eventually coming to terms with what's happening and solving it that way. So I think a more systematic approach has really helped us kind of solve conflicts faster and more efficiently, which then allows us to make more happier memories, which is a huge part of the foundation of our relationship. So that really centers around you and then that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Anything else you can think of? I said it perfectly.
What else?
What are the benefits of being married to Tim? I don't know.
I can
man.
bring out the long list of things.
Yeah.
I think being able to connect on it's an exciting time and an exciting field that you're in of entrepreneurship. I mean, the sky really is the limit of what you can do, and you're in control of a lot of different things and can pivot and there are just a lot of options and a lot of really cool things to talk about. So I think that in a way helps our relationship because it adds in this like new, I don't know, new information. Like I'm constantly being fed new information about, oh, this is what's going on with my agency, or this is what's going on with Carrot, or this is what's going on with wholesaling. And and I learn all of these things because I'm not in the field at all. And it just, it helps me grow. And then also, since you manage a lot of people and are, working in that type of space, it helps me try to think about how I want to manage my own lab and my own team. And a lot of them can translate into my career too. So we have a lot of really great career-focused discussions. And I think you being an entrepreneur has helped me in my career and thinking about not only time management in my career, but collaborating with people, things like that. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Makes me happy.
Yeah, it's true.
So we'll wrap it up here soon. But anything else? We didn't touch on the stress. You mentioned that like entrepreneurship, there's a lot of positives, but it can cause a lot of stress. Do you have any tips for people, entrepreneurs who are in a relationship, of how we've been able to manage some of the stress that maybe the traditional 9-to-5ers wouldn't have?
Yeah, I think trust is a big one, and I say the word trust, but it really means a whole ton of different things.
Yeah.
I go back to that moment when, we both kind of maybe, even though we were young and naive and whatever, but the moment in time when you decided, hey, I'm going to focus 100% of my time on being an entrepreneur, and I'm not going to work my traditional 9-to-5 job anymore.
Because I got laid off.
Because he got laid off, but he could have found another job. I mean, he found that job pretty easily, and he had a business degree. So
true.
I think taking that leap of faith, it requires a certain trust in your partner and a trust in them and what they believe in, and just kind of letting them helping them help themselves. So let them grow in the way that they want to grow in that way.
What do you mean by that?
And not be afraid.
What does that mean?
I think a lot of people maybe would be afraid that, hey, you're entering this unknown field with unknown income. It's scary. And, we fortunately had the privilege of being able to do that.
Yeah, we didn't have
at the time
kids or crazy high rents or any sick parents or anything like that.
Yeah, so not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
But I think for maybe some of the people that might be wavering on, do I want to support this or not? You really just need to trust your partner and trust that they know what they're doing and how to do it. And I think that for me, I saw the personalities, because we had been going out for like 3 years at the time. Mm-hmm. I saw the personality traits in Tim that make for a good entrepreneur, at least in my naive opinion, which would be, doing research, like creating these systems. Like Tim likes to learn, and he can teach himself. And I think that that's important. And he's willing to work hard and grow. And, you did all of that. So
would there be a point if, it's not like I decided to become an entrepreneur and then a year later I'm like, oh, I'm a millionaire. Great. Thanks for letting me do that.
It wasn't like that.
I'm still waiting on that. But is there a point where you would have been like, Tim, you need to cut the BS, like get a job.
Yeah.
Like we can't handle the risk anymore. Like I can't handle this. What would that point be? Or
yeah, I think just going into debt, like an unnecessary amount of debt, like spending way above your means that you have, and then there not being trends of, hey, this isn't working, and I'm not really trying things that are getting it to work.
Mm-hmm. What would that limit be, you think, debt?
The limit of debt?
Because I went into debt right away, but I think I only spent like $5,000 in credit card debt that I didn't have for the direct mail and stuff that we're talking about, postcards and Google ads and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I was in debt $5,000 with $0 in my bank account.
Forget about that.
Did I tell her about it? Maybe I didn't tell her about it.
No, I think I knew.
But yeah, what would that like scope be for you? It's different for everybody, but
I feel like maybe back then it was a blessing in disguise that I was so like naive about these things, and
You're like, whatever.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Is there a number?
like
I mean,
50K, like 30K, like 30 to 50K. I mean,
I feel like I could
like a
have still.
student, like a student debt's worth. I guess maybe in my mind, the way I would have rationalized it would have been, okay, like our like typical student loans are like $20,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if I think if you maybe had crossed that threshold, because then you can say, okay, well, I invested this money in myself, much like you do for school or things like that, and then I couldn't get it to work, and then that for me, we would have had to get on the same page about that. So that's probably how I would have rationalized it.
Luckily, it
at the
didn't come to
time.
that. Yes. Luckily,
Yeah.
it didn't come to that. But
Yeah, I mean, you worked through it, and I think
Yeah.
like building your network was important. Like I think, and we talk about these things too. Like, I remember us talking about these things in the moment of like, hey, why don't you go and try to find somebody that is doing and is at where you want to be, and learn from them. So I think that helped.
yeah. Yeah, you've been
So-
supportive the whole way. And that's one of the benefits that I've seen in my life just being with you. I think I got lucky a little bit, but a lot of people don't get that support. And you were always like, when I remember when I got laid off from my job 9 years ago, I came to you. I felt so ashamed. I was
know,
like,
it was really sad.
yeah, I was like in the picking you up and from the work,
And it was probably another situation where I didn't come out on time.
yeah, I was probably sitting there for like an hour, 30 minutes or something.
know.
And then I came out there like I was like crying, and I was like, Kristen, I got some bad news. And then I was like,
I thought someone was dying.
yeah, I was like, I got laid off. She's like, oh, thank God. She's like, thank God. I thought your grandma died or something. I thought something actually bad happened. And I was like, oh, well, I wasn't expecting you to be happy about it. But
I
yeah,
know.
yeah. No, but it was hard. It was hard. And but you were like very supportive
Yeah.
of me. You're like, Tim, like, because I was like, what should I do? I have no money. Should I I have to go into debt to do this? But you supported me the whole way through, and you didn't have a lot of money either. You were making basically the poverty line income.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of support for me, and I needed that, I think.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of extreme example, but it's been that way ever since of like,
Yeah.
when I get stressed out, business doesn't get less stressful. Sorry to break it to you, but it doesn't. It can get more stressful. The stakes
Yeah.
are higher. There's more responsibility. There's people relying on you, and being able to come home to you. And we've worked so hard on a relationship where I can come home and I can kind of vent and just tell you what's on my mind, what I'm stressed out about, and you can even help me work through it. It makes me a better business person. I think makes me a better communicator. I'm much more, I think, empathetic with my teammates, especially female teammates, that maybe I wouldn't have had their perspective before, whether it's coworkers or employees or whatnot. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Is there anything else that we want to touch on? And I enjoyed this. We should start our own podcast. This is
know.
fun. We'll see if people actually want to hear us ramble about it. But
know.
I thought this was great. We should do it just for us. This is fun.
I know.
You like this? You
Yeah,
like doing
yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
this? Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up here? About anything, or ask me anything? This is it. You can expose the truth. Tim
Yeah.
Upheld exposed.
Let's see. Exposed. Because what do you think that you're entering this kind of next phase in your life? Tim's going to be a dad soon. We're moving.
Yeah.
But Tim's also still running his businesses and doing his thing. So what do you think, after we just kind of reflected on, okay, from the things that you needed as an entrepreneur when you were starting out versus how it is now, we talked a little bit about that. What do you think that you're going to need the most, and maybe what some of your colleagues need in their this next stage of your career, and then with your family life? Because is maybe that the point where people start getting divorced and start like making that distance? Like, what do you need from your partner in that time?
Well, I mean, having kids is a big thing, right? So I could ask you the same questions a year from now. We might have very different answers because, I don't know, like when we talked about in the beginning, the divorce rates, I'm assuming it's much higher for people with kids than without kids because kids isn't added stress. But I don't actually know if that's true, so I don't want to assume that. But just from what I've heard, having kids is like it's just a lot of work, right? It's like whatnot. So
Yeah. I think that also
yeah,
us on this journey together from the beginning, you would say, I want to be an entrepreneur because part of the reason is because you want to have this freedom where you can spend time with your family.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of at that time where, hey, now you have the family and like you've been working towards this goal. And I'm sure a lot of other entrepreneurs feel the same way. Are they spending the time? Are they able to spend the time with their kids? And then how can their partner help them with that? Because I could imagine that if that goal doesn't wind up being fulfilled or satisfied in the way that you always thought all these years,
yeah,
then you would have to, deal with
Reevaluate.
that.
yeah. Honestly, that's a really good point. I think that business people who work so hard and say it's for my family are full of shit. I think not maybe not all of them, but I think a lot of it's full of shit. And maybe I'm full of shit too. I don't know, but like, I think it's rationalizing your workaholism and like, oh, it's okay for me to work 15 hours a day and ignore my family because I'm doing it all for them. And I think it's full of shit. They don't want you to buy them a car. They don't want you to take them to Paris. I mean, maybe they do, but they care more about your time and your presence. I mean, I guess we'll wait and see if that's true or not, but like, I think that's a good question. Like, I don't know what exactly I will need, but, I have always said, like, I do want more free time and I do want to hang out with my kid more. That is partially why I became an entrepreneur and worked so effing hard in the first place. I guess that it'll be a stress test of like, am I going to start spending more time with my kid or am I going to start doing more work? I guess that's the point you're trying to make, right? Like, what's actually going to happen? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that you'll spend more time with them, yeah. I don't think it's going to be easy, though, because just like with anything, we've developed our habits and our way of life now, and you're used to it, and it's comfortable. So it's really going to take forming like a whole new system of things.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's realistic to expect that everything right now will be exactly the same, but you'll just work less.
No more YouTube videos.
And then
this will be the last one.
You'll spend more time with them. I think we just have to take it as it comes, and then just as long as we're both on the same page about that one, that's a high priority need. I mean, for me too. I mean, I also made the same types of decisions in my career that I want to spend more time with my family and not work these like crazy types of hours and things like that. So
if you think we work hard, you should see the people that she works with. They work effing hard. People work hard. And scientists, I mean, I give them credit. These guys are grinding all weekend, It's crazy. We're not as special, us entrepreneurs are not as special as we think we are. We're not grinding more than a lot of these other people do. I think what I need is just probably more, like if you could help push me to communicate even more. Because like it's like you were saying, we need to like take it one step at a time, but we need to be on the same page. And with so many things happening in our life, with the transition, having a kid, and we're moving, business is always up in the air to some extent. I think it's just important to keep talking about it. Like I don't know what the challenges are going to be, but I think as long as we can talk about them, become aware of them, and then we can just work together to fix it, whatever it is. And I don't know what the systems are going to end up being like or whatnot, or how to allocate time here and there. But I think as long as we are openly communicating about it, I think that's probably the biggest thing is even more communication, which sounds daunting. I mean, we already talk so much, but like even more communication about our life is probably what I need the most, I would imagine. And maybe some more patience. I can never have enough patience.
Yes.
I get stressed out about change. At the end, a lot of people do, but it's just patient. Grace is maybe a better word. Like it's going to be challenging. I'm probably going to drop the ball on some things in my work. Probably will drop the ball on some things in my family. Hopefully not, but like just patience as we work through different changes and extra communication and love. I mean, kind of a cliche answer, but it's the best thing I got for you.
Yeah, I read somewhere that, if you're thinking about, you can think about this as juggling, right? So you have plastic balls that you're juggling, but also there's glass balls, and glass balls can be the family, certain things about your work. And sometimes you're juggling way more than you can handle, and it's okay if you drop like a plastic ball, and it's fine. But if you drop the glass ball, then the glass ball breaks. So I think just making sure that we're there to not drop the glass balls, and then maybe catch the glass balls if they're falling from the other person. So.
What would a glass ball be?
I mean, I guess
leaving your kid in the car.
Like anything to do with safety, like those types of things.
Right.
You don't want to show up and pick up your kid late and have them like waiting out there by themselves, or missing, games or things like that are important to them, even though to us as adults, maybe they're not as important as your $50 an hour per hour deal that you're doing.
Yep.
But to them, it's worth even more than that. So I think just making sure you're there for those types of moments, it's important.
And I think getting clear on getting on the same page about what a glass ball is and what a plastic ball is. Because I may think some things are plastic balls, but you think they're glass balls.
Yes.
And if we're not on the same page about it, I think I dropped a plastic ball. I'm like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But you're like, that's a glass ball. It's broken.
I know.
And if you're not on the same page about that, it can cause a lot of challenges. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Anything else before we wrap it up here?
No, this is great.
This is fun.
Yeah.
All right. If you like more of this stuff, let us know. I thought it was fun. Like, there's just not a lot of people that bring their wives on. I always see these entrepreneurs with these podcasts, and they're always dropping nuggets and how to make $1 trillion in 10 seconds and all this stuff. I'm like, man, what does their wife do? Like, what is their wife doing? Because this guy has like Elon Musk. I'm sorry, but he has like 9 kids. I'm like, what is this guy doing? Like, who's taking care of the kids? I mean, that's maybe a bad example because there's a lot going on there. But all these entrepreneurs who are like working so hard and scaling their businesses up, and they have a whole family. I'm like, man, what gives? Like, what is the wife doing, or what is the husband doing while the wife's working? Like, what is going on here? So I'm always curious about that, because to me, the relationship is such a huge component of success. Mm-hmm. Like, if we're struggling, like, my business will struggle. Like, I can't picture me being successful without taking you into the equation, because we're such a unit.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's just so much context lost with all these podcasts, all these guys just, we're trying to one-up each other and whatnot. I don't know. So if you like this kind of content, anyway, I'm rambling. We'll do another one of these. We'll bring her on.
Yeah.
I'll ask her even harder questions, and maybe you'll ask me some harder questions too. So.
All right.
Thanks for
great.
coming on, babe.
Thanks for having me.
Peace.